a stream together.
Me too. Me too. This is going to be fun.
And I'm so glad you ended up being available today because I was like, oh, I want to talk about this. I'm so tired of watching the discourse on these things play out and just being like, where to begin. Anyways, hello, everybody. Megan with Party Crashers here. Steve is still out of the office, but we are here with friend of the show, Blue. Blue and I actually met driving from Chicago to Detroit to go to the Bernie and Abdul rally for Fight Oligarchy. And now first full circle moment, next time we are seeing each other, I'm pretty sure, is here to talk about some news that came out today. I think anybody who watches our show is aware of Haley Stevens and Abdul El-Sayed.
Yeah.
But the CBC PAC, which is the Congressional Black Caucus PAC, has endorsed Haley Stevens. And I have not looked to see what the white left is saying as a response. I just know that it is not going to make anything any better for anybody. So Blue is kindly here to talk through what I think. So there's, I mean, I obviously am not an expert in this. I don't have like lived experience. And I think although the knee-jerk reaction is to be like, oh, the establishment, I also understand that there are a lot of complexities that like it's just never going to help for white people to think they understand why Black people are doing what they're doing. And it makes things so much worse. And you had sent all these videos which really put things like helped me understand like the Bernie bros and how like Mamdani, when there were, you know, obvious hit pieces about him, you know, to try to split him from the Black community, Mamdani would just address and move on. But his followers, his supporters would make things worse by keeping the fights going, keeping the arguments going. And like the white left really hurts itself when it does these things, in my opinion. So I wanted to have a conversation to really figure like what do white people need to fucking understand about these things, and how can we do a better job growing a coalition and building power instead of falling for these time and time again.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues I think we have in politics and on the left in particular is understanding, and like this is this is gonna come off harsh, but like understanding why Black people don't trust white people. And I think that's like the crux of it right there, right? Like, and I think leftists struggle with this in particular because like in their minds, in our minds, like we're doing everything right. We believe in all of the right things, right? Like our economic beliefs and policies, our social policies are going to be the ones that are going to like push the movement forward, right? But I do think there's like a fundamental misunderstanding that like in ultimately, Megan, it comes from the fact that like history is you know, taught by the it's written and taught by the victors. So there's a fundamental like leaving out and misunderstanding of like how these leftist movements have happened historically in America. Like every leftist will tell you FDR was incredible and he's the best, and the New Deal was the best thing ever, and we got to go back to that. But like there's a fundamental misunderstanding that comes with the New Deal only worked for white Americans because it excluded Black people, right? Like it's the only reason why they would accept something like this. And so like Black people don't have this like jovial feeling about like how great leftism is, you know, from like a historical standpoint. Like even I've got friends who parents are absolutely Republicans and will vote for Trump 15 times over, but love everything about their unions. They love everything about the New Deal. They love the fact that they own 2 homes completely paid off because their parents before them got a house and was able to pay it off, and they got a house and was able to pay it off. And like they love all those things, but they still don't really like Black people. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But black people, they don't have that, right? Like we never benefited from those things, and the only time we've ever benefited from political movement, political power was either through like very brutal revolutionary movements like the civil rights movement, or by, I hate to say it, capitulating to the quote unquote left wing version of the white supremacist power structures. So
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
it.
no, I mean, and I think the word capitulate, although you hate to say it, I think important context is like when people are forced to choose to do what they have to do to survive, which, when we have people under these conditions, to force them to have to capitulate to follow the power structure the way it is. I mean, to me, it's like I can't blame anyone for choosing to do what they have to do to survive. And so as much as my knee-jerk reaction is always like, oh, come on, like Haley Stevens, is she really better for Black people? Who am I to think I know better? And so I think like um that's where I think people have to realize, like, if you're not understanding why, you have to take a minute to fucking learn. And I
Yeah.
think, like,
Yeah.
especially with organizing around Palestine, I have learned a lot of things that I did not understand before. Like, I didn't understand that because, a lot of the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus, um, it took a while to get them to support repealing the anti-BDS law, which makes it illegal to boycott Israel in the state of Illinois, basically. And I didn't understand that for a long time, synagogues kept the lights on in Black churches, and that a lot of Jewish philanthropies exist in Black communities. And so there is a relationship there, and like it breeds a sense of loyalty. And I'm like, okay, that is really important information, that like who am I to judge what people needed to do in order to survive? And it's in the same way that I'm not going to judge, Tupac and Change says, I never did a crime I didn't have to do. It's like, like who am I to judge? That doesn't mean that we can't figure out a way to somehow bridge the divide and work together. But it does take, I think, a lot of humility from especially white leftists who do feel like they know and understand. It's like still an ingrained white supremacy is showing to be like, I still know better than you for you. So I feel like that's why these conversations are important to have. So I don't know if you have seen, or I'll give you a second to add or weigh in on anything.
Yeah, no, uh I think you touched on a good point about like the deep connection that the Jewish community and the Black community have, and like obviously we want to in no way do what the right and with certain levels of the corporate democratic wing want to do, which is to say that the Jewish faith and in the Jewish culture is the same thing as Zionism, right? That's absolutely not the case. But like just in our connection to that community, I mean, when no one was fighting for Black people, the only white people fighting for Black people were Jewish people. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So like there is, I think, also like a deep understanding that like a lot of our rights, I mean, Bernie Sanders, was being, arrested during the civil rights movement, right? So like there is a deep, I think, reverence in like understanding that we have historically that like when it all falls down, like the group of white people who have like a almost fundamental understanding of the plight of Black people in America are Jewish Americans, right? And like people of
Mhm.
Jewish faith. So I think there's a deep connection there. And like, let's be honest, Megan, like people, Black people, white people, Hispanic people, Asian people don't know shit about the conflict in what's happening in Palestine. They don't.
Mhm.
Even I only recently within the last 2 years became relatively educated on that conflict. If you were to ask an average American, whether that's Black or otherwise, like their thoughts on Israel, their thoughts are like, well, the Holocaust was bad, and Israel is like a mechanism to like keep Jewish people safe, right? There is no understanding. Not let's just say there's no understanding, but like there's a very small understanding outside of that for your average American, right? And so I think a piece of it is educational, and I think if more people, Black or otherwise understood that, like, that there's a absolute fundamental difference between Zionism and those of the Jewish faith, and understanding that the majority of Zionists are right-wing Christian nationalists in America. I think in that, the Zionist project is the same project that has been afflicting Black and brown people for all of human history. I think there would be a understanding that, like, that is the side I should be standing on. So I think there's a lot of levels to it, but I'll let you go ahead. But that's kind of like my perspective on it.
Yeah. No, I think that's very important to state. The conflation does also add its own challenges, the conflation of Judaism and Zionism. When I think Ta-Nehisi Coates has been a really great voice on the issue too, talking about how when he went to 3 different places for his book, The Message. Did you read The Message?
No, I haven't read, but I heard it's very good. It's on my list.
Oh, it's so good. But he went to, I believe, I want to say Sudan. He went somewhere in Africa. He went to Charlottesville, or like one of the places that was in the process of banning his book, Between the World and Me, which is, what it's like to live in the world with Black skin. That was being banned. And then he went to Palestine, and saying, like, as soon as I was in Palestine, I was like, this is what the Jim Crow South looked like. And there's no separating what happened, like what my parents and ancestors experienced and what Palestinians are experiencing now. But we are so barricaded from that information. I mean, Ro Khanna was just there, and he's like, oh my God, this is so much worse than I could have ever imagined. Until you're here, you don't know what it's like. Ro Khanna said, I've never been so aware of my brown skin before. And so, yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of things because, and we've seen, the way the media treats Black Lives Matter movement, like the way that things are manipulated. There are a lot of through lines, and they keep us from seeing that they are through lines. And so, yeah, I mean, anyways, you sent some really good clips. Do you want me to play some of these clips and commentate on them, or was there anything specific that you wanted to talk about within this topic, or what do you think?
No, yeah, I think we should definitely play the clips. I think that'd be really good.
Okay. I have the Mamdani Succeeds Where Bernie Fails clip, which I thought was great.
Yeah, these clips are from FD Signifier. If you guys watching have not tapped into FD Signifier, he is an academic. He studied politics, Black social issues. He was a teacher, and he's probably the top Black thought leader on the online left. And he gives a really good perspective on, like, because he's a bit older than me. He's like an older millennial. So like he fully was wrapped into the Obama mania and stuff like that. So like he gives a really good perspective of like what it means to be like a Black leftist, and someone who had to like go from being a Black liberal to a Black leftist. So it's really good stuff.
All right, I'm going to play this. I'm starting it at 5 minutes. Let me know if you can't hear it or anything.
Certain leftists in the crowd, if I start with using Mamdani as an example of how to engage with and appeal with Black voters, as opposed to how Bernie had. Because one thing that I wish I'd have made more clear is that aside from this college application nonsense, which happened when he was 17, Mamdani has done a masterful job appealing to younger Black voters, and he's positioning himself to penetrate older Black voters in a way that Bernie never did. So if we can all see and agree on that, then all we have to do is learn and observe, and we'll know what to do, and importantly, what not to do. Like as it pertains to that college application thing, and this is God willingly going to be the last time I bring this up. I've done more research on that since the last video because people were calling it a right-wing psyop, and no, it's not. Was it brought to us by right-wing, journalism or whatever else? Yes, that is true. But is there no validity in what's being reported and it's false? No, that's not true. And no, the category of Black or African-American was never meant to include a South Asian man born in Uganda. Mamdani may not have known this at 17. I think he did, but I don't care. I don't want to talk about it right now.
I can't believe people tried to argue that.
And he explains himself. Move on. For the life of me, I do not understand why some of you felt like you needed to do more in defense of this than he
embarrassing.
did.
Y'all are embarrassing.
So many non-Black,
so embarrassing.
So many white people trying to explain to Black people what college applications mean when they use the phrase Black or African American. This is a well actually asked argument Leave it alone. Because I need y'all to understand, and I wish this would have come across better. The problem here isn't the facts of the issue, the fact that he checked the wrong box. It's the conversation that spills out from it, how it derails and goes into areas that are unwinnable conversations for him and the left in general. The game that is being played isn't about Mamdani, it's about making this issue a debate in the first place. New York Times and Eric Adams know this isn't something that will actually hurt him directly, but what can hurt him is forcing this issue to be a regular topic of discussion for him in the media, and most significantly with argumentative non-Black progressives who don't have the discipline to not think they can explain the real meaning of African American to African Americans. I could go on and explain further why this is dumb and offensive. I went in on it on a live last week, but I actually immediately privated that live because I realized if I kept arguing with y'all about this, I'm just doing the devil's work for him. It's just a distraction at this point that takes away from the ultimate goal, which is something Mamdani himself understood when he addressed it as directly as he did. And I'm just going to say it with me: follow Mamdani's lead. It's the same energy that Mamdani had when somebody asked me if he was going to visit Israel after he became mayor of New York. He basically said, my job is here in New York. I don't want to talk about that. He didn't get sidetracked. He stayed on topic and then moved on. So moving on, let's examine why Bernie did so poorly with Black voters in a way that Mamdani is repeating in some ways, but defying in others, and what's to be learned from that. I'm going to try to keep it simple.
Megan, can I just jump in here too? Like, I think the what happened with, you know, the African American thing on his application is also like just perfectly indicative of like what happened with Graham Plattner. You know what I mean? Like, just like this. And I do get it on some level. Like the right is really good at like doubling and tripling down and like standing by their people no matter what happens. And like, I do think there was a point in our past where we were too easily distracted and too easily to like toss out anyone that made any, like, even the most minute sort of you know, micro aggression or something that didn't align perfectly with what we were doing. I do get that, but like this, what he's talking about, it's kind of like exactly that point. Like there, you know, did we want Graham Plattner to be a better person? Absolutely. But like, should we have like stood on that and ready to argue down all of the kind of like indefensible stuff that we had? Probably not, right? And I do think on the left, it's hard because we don't have many warriors. We don't have many people that are willing to actually like stand on their beliefs. But like, we got to get more disciplined. We got to get more discerning on like who are actual allies, because if we don't, then we're going to keep on ending up with a Plattner situation, or we're going to keep ending up with fucking Fetterman. You know what I mean? Like we gotta get better at this. Holy shit.
Yeah. And I think like a lot of because I didn't really speak publicly about Plattner much. I didn't defend him publicly because I was like, these are not hills I want to die on. Exactly. You know, these aren't hills I want to die on, but I do hope he wins, was where I was at. Yep. But then it was like, and being able to like see that unfold from like more, I wasn't neutral, and I wish that I would have been more discerning to not even privately you know, talk about him. But when there is such a big vacuum in Democratic leadership, like that, we're just being gaslit all the time. They're not talking about a genocide. They're not talking about, you know, how they are making money off of, you know, from ICE contractors too. Their donors are ICE contractors too. That they are being paid. You know, they try to talk about the affordability crisis. They don't take ownership of who funds their campaigns, which are corporations. And so when we have anybody giving us like a teeny bit of truth, it is like, oh my gosh, this is true, and we can trust this person. And that's what people liked about Trump, though. They didn't really care how awful he was. They were like, at least he says what we're all thinking. And it's like, no, we're not all thinking that. Let's But that's what happens when we don't have real leaders. And it creates like a desperation for transparency and authenticity, and it gave him way more passes than he ever deserved, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, put this back on.
Conversation, but the easiest answer as to why Bernie could not connect with Black voters is that the vibes are off. Bernie did not look or act the part of a political figure who was greatly engaged with and invested in the needs of Black people, especially your typical Black liberals, Black moderates, normal Black people that go to work every day, that aren't chronically online and aren't greatly politically engaged. The types of people that you might call a low information voter if you're really fucking stupid and low-key racist. This answer will probably frustrate a lot of you, so I'm going to try to be more specific. So I need you to actually listen before you react. All you React Andes that are gonna watch it, I need you to take your sweaty fingers off the mouse for a second and digest what's actually being said before interrupting the flow. Say all you want that Bernie marched in MLK in the 60s, which you all certainly do, but from the 70s till now, he decided to live in literally the second whitest state in the country. And Black people can tell, not based off his politics, which is the thing that I need y'all to understand, but the fact that he made no friends, no allies among Black political power brokers in his 40 years of public service, and no supporting Jesse Jackson in the 80s does not count. When Bernie Sanders emerged on the scene in 2016, most Black folks that were interested in politics did not know who he was, and that is a problem. The left complains a lot about Jim Clyburn, and rightfully so. He is awful and has done awful things to hurt progressive politics and underserved Black people so that they only can get scraps from Democrats after they've been offering way more than that for decades. But I need you to understand that he isn't able to do that through some magic scroll or even with the explicit backing and support of the Democratic establishment. He's in that position because he spent the last 40 years building a strong coalition among Black political power brokers all over the country and especially the South. As I said in another video, Clyburn has built a political infrastructure around him that gives him access to countless Black institutions. HBCUs, which are historically Black colleges, for those of you in there that don't know what that is, Black churches, Black Greek letter organizations, Black nonprofits, anyone who is in charge of any organization that collects and engages with Black communities is probably only a few degrees separated from Jim Clyburn because he has purposely built that infrastructure over his career. And it's that infrastructure that has made him valuable to the Democratic establishment because he then positioned himself to be the vessel through which those scraps that they give to Black people finally make it back in the Black community. Again, this is awful. Clyburn is awful, but his tactics are not. His tactics are what we need to be replicating because all he did was organize. And this is not something that Bernie did in Vermont. When Bernie popped out in 2016, it was immediately obvious that he hadn't actually been in community with Black folks since MLK in the 60s. The phrase, "whose man's is this?" was very appropriate. And his response to that phrase wasn't the appropriate response. Instead, he went and sought approval from Black celebrities and academics, people like Killer Mike and Cornel West. And this was very impressive to white people. Don't get me wrong, Killer Mike is very much loved and respected in Black spaces, but that's something that he's done over the course of the last decade. Because in 2016, he was not a super significant figure in hip hop. He was literally often called your favorite rapper's favorite rapper because he wasn't that popular. Run the Jewels was not being played on Black radio stations. His fan base was as white as his group mate. And Cornel West is pretty much the same story, respected by Black folks in the know and in academia or whatever, but invisible and insignificant to everyone except for the politically inclined and academic crowd. Eventually, Bernie did start making more efforts to get into Black spaces. He got interviewed by the Breakfast Club for like 15 minutes, but the whole time it was still obvious to Black people that this was not someone invested in Black people up to this point. And this is all without going into the not so great moments with Black Lives Matter on stage or saying that he doesn't believe in reparations multiple times without a very good answer. Instead, Bernie just kept insisting that his political goals would help Black people, and he just expected folks to be like, oh, wow, you know, healthcare does cost too much, and I never considered voting for a person who wanted free healthcare.
Why not support reparations?
What do you mean by reparations? So what is your position specifically on reparations? I asked the question because Elizabeth Warren, Julian Castro, they've indicated they want to support.
What do they mean? Now, why does it seem like this week you've been kind of dodging the reparations? Senator Harris and Senator Warren have both kind of spoken out and said that they agree with some form of reparations.
Well, the question is, I'm not dodging the question. The question is, what do we mean?
We really want to talk about what are you going to do about reparations?
What does he mean? What do you mean?
It's so dumb too because like Bernie is so smart. He knows what it means, and also like, you know, one of Bernie's biggest faults is like he's almost too honest because like, do I believe that Kamala Harris or any of the other names would actually do anything about reparations? No, they will not. But they at least have the sense to lie about it. They at least have the sense to lie about it. You know what I mean? Like it's so frustrating, and so we keep losing on small pieces like that.
Also,
so
like,
frustrating.
I don't see how we can have a successful socialist system until reparations.
Yeah,
I don't
100%.
Like, I think that should be order of business number one to anybody who truly cares about having a successful socialist platform. Because you have to change the disparity first. But
like, and this is what I was getting to in the beginning, and FD talks about this a lot too. But like, Bernie understands the uncomfortable truth of it, which is white people, including white leftists, only want socialism if Black people don't get it. or or if like everyone gets it equal. So like the way there's two views of it, right? Like the right, they only want socialism as long as black people don't get it, and then the left only wants socialism if like everyone gets it and no one gets anything extra, especially not black people, right? Like there is no real balancing of it, and like part of that is education, and part of it is like a little racism. You know what I mean?
I think what people don't understand is inequity anywhere is inequity everywhere. If you are going to permit this inequity to stay, it is always going to keep popping. Like we cannot get all of the things we want until we make sure everyone can get it.
Yep. 100%.
We can't get the things we want until we make sure everyone, like it's just like, do you want it? Like I genuinely cannot wrap my head around the stupidity.
You go first. Yeah, go. I'm not a self.
We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of any major country on earth, especially within the African American community. So what
Reparations could help with that.
I've said black 50 times. All right, that's the 51st time.
Throughout Black history, politicians, both black and white, come into black spaces with allegedly good intentions, promising the world, and then never return after you get their vote. That is something that black people are very used to. There's other elements to this process, right? But that is the reality. So no amount of presenting good politics is going to convince a lot of black voters, especially older ones who have seen this multiple times before. So when someone asks what Bernie Sanders' connection is to black people and black communities in 2016, and you keep on pointing out something he did in 1963, it comes off condescending and tone deaf. Marching with King is dope, but it was clear looking at Sanders and his team that there were pretty much no black folks involved. And then in 2020, when he did do a lot more to build a more diverse infrastructure, it seemed like they were hamstrung by any real dedication to the type of work needed to build inroads with black voters. A Washington Post article in 2020 that interviewed his own black campaign staffers said that his team all but refused to put in the needed effort to build inroads with black voters. Quote, others who worked in the state said some of the campaign's decisions amounted to political malpractice. They faulted national campaign officials for deploying what they viewed as unseasoned strategists, not advertising more aggressively on television and black radio, and missing opportunities to bring Sanders in for FaceTime with black leaders and black voters. Even more basic needs, such as yard signs, became a source of angst, they said, citing a stark shortage in a state where visibility is a big part of the political culture. Inexperienced state leadership, said Hyman, who gave speeches for Sanders, was very slow to respond and to take any risk or broaden our base or to push for some of what we thought were common sense suggestions. One idea, for example, was for Sanders to visit a convention of Baptist ministers, according to Gilliard and Thigpen, who said that plan was rejected by higher ups. Jessica Bright, who served as state director, said the decision was more of a scheduling conflict. It wasn't anything outside of that realm. So let's talk about the black church for a second. I grew up Muslim. I did not grow up in the church. And for a long time, I didn't have much respect or appreciation for the church for all the reasons I'm sure you can think of. And I'm not going to sit here and act like those reasons are invalid and that the black church does not have a ton of problems, because it does. And these problems have led it to the brink of extinction at this point. And it's why a lot of black Zs and millennials are completely disinterested in it. However, two things can be true at once. There are tons of black churches with radically different political inclinations than most of you realize, which isn't too hard to believe if you actually understand the history of the black church. And Lil Bill has a great video on liberation theology that you all can watch after this. But the worst black churches still have something that the left does not: the power and access to a mass organizing infrastructure that can bring people to do things at the drop of a dime. A lot of you may not even know this, but are you aware that Target has been the subject of black consumer boycott since the beginning of the year, partly organized by Dr. Jamal Bryant here in Atlanta? A few months ago, he announced on a Sunday that there was going to be a panel discussion around the boycott on the following Tuesday, 48 hours notice. And he got probably 1,000 people to show up, including myself and including Nina Turner. Now, you may say to yourself, a consumer boycott isn't some bastion of leftist political action. And you're right. It's definitely not what I would do if I had that type of organizing power. But I don't. And we need to respect that this is such an immensely powerful tool, both today and historically, that we've just given away because we think that these are unreachable and impossible to engage with. We're ignoring it because older black people are too conservative and low information voters. And meanwhile, Target is trying to figure out how it's going to survive in the future because of this boycott. And I'm sorry, I don't really think the black church is so much more conservative in 2025 than it was in the 1960s when it was leading a leftist movement. The black church has been the center of revolutionary action and resistance for black people since slavery. It's why so much effort has been put into degrading it over the last 50 years to neutralize its effectiveness as a legitimate and dangerous organizing tool. So my boy Sean the Black, who was nicer to my video than others, when he watched it, he made the mistake of thinking that I wasn't serious when I said some of you Gen Z, some of you do need to start going to church. Not everyone, right? Please don't go expose yourself to harm and entering religious spaces when you know you won't be welcomed and you'll be triggered, and engaging with people that are going to be hard to penetrate and deal with in those moments. I'm not asking for people to re-traumatize themselves by entering into a space that they think is harmful, but some of you can easily go to church, and you should, not to worship and save your soul or whatever, but to actually engage with the types of people that are going to be there, that are invested in community and organizing and progress and action, that are doing it without a leftist influence involved in what they're doing. That's where you might fit in. And I think some of the resistance here is because progressives tend not to recognize their own biases and prejudices against the wrong types of people that don't have good politics. And then you wonder why you can't build coalitions and why those same people vote against their own self-interest. When are you sure you're actually presenting their self-interest when you talk to them and engage with them? I can't help but look at what some people say they're building when they say they're building a people's movement, and notice that certain types of people aren't present in their movement. So going back to Bernie, the idea that he had time to talk about marching with MLK 50 years ago, but couldn't find time in his schedule to meet with church leaders in 2020 is damning. That's the wrong type of pandering. It's the type of pandering that shows you haven't been in community enough to update your pandering resume. It was the hello fellow teenagers of pandering. On the flip side, this is what high quality pandering looks like. That Zoran Mamdani at a Haitian concert in New York using colloquial Haitian language, speaking specifically to issues that Haitians care about, and even bringing up the Haitian history of anti-colonial revolution. That's a level of investment and knowledge that a lot of you aren't even capable of engaging with. This is Mamdani quoting Reverend Al Sharpton in front of Reverend Al Sharpton at a Harlem church sitting next to Spike Lee. Say it with me. Follow Mamdani's lead. And I don't think too many people, especially black voters, are somehow oblivious to when they're getting pandered to. Anyone that says, oh, that's pandering as if that's a bad thing. No, that's their fucking job as a politician. But if you're going to
also, Megan, like I think the other piece about this too is like, because, you know, and this is where I think on the left, we get it wrong, both on the left center to like far left. Is like, you can't fake the funk and you can't avoid the funk, right? And so like you have someone like Hillary Clinton, or you know, like or anyone, or fucking Nancy Pelosi with a fucking dashiki on and shit, like we can tell that Hillary Clinton really don't like black people like that. Yeah, I mean, we can tell that Hillary Clinton, you know, when she's doing the hot sauce in her bag, whether it's true or not, we can tell that this is a consultant-minded thing. Like we can tell that you are doing the thing that you think black people really like. We can tell, right? And so I think what happens is like you have your corporate Democrats who are just so fundamentally like, okay, well, black people like hip hop, so I'm going to do the hip hop thing. And then you have leftists who are like almost like vehemently against like you know, like the pandering piece and like connect like, oh well, you know, the corporatists, they're doing all this, we're not going to do this. And like the key is not for leftists to like go out there and pander. The key is to actually be engaged with the community in a real genuine way, right? Like when I posted on my Instagram when I saw someone act, I think it was like Complex X Mamdani, with his first album was, and you know, a lot of you guys, if you don't know, this is the 30th anniversary of Jay-Z's career and the 25th anniversary of The Blueprint, and his response was, the first album I ever got was The Blueprint. And it didn't feel like Mamdani was like, hello blacks, let me tell you about this hip hop I like, right? Like you can tell that Mamdani hangs out with a bunch of black people,
right? You can tell when people have relationships.
Yep,
like
absolutely.
And I think that's like the difference, is you can tell the difference between somebody who is, let me perform for a black audience, and I don't have to perform anything because I have friends, like I have friends who are black, but like, no, because like I'm just, and this is an extension of relationships I already have, and I don't need to do anything weird, weird about it.
Yeah. And you can just tell, you can absolutely tell. Like I got a friend of mine, one of my white Jewish friends, and he was like, oh man, he goes, I really think you like, you heard that new Benny the Butcher? And I'm like, what? Benny the Butcher is from Buffalo, which is like an hour away from where I'm from. Why do you know who Benny the Butcher is? You know, but like that's someone who is actively engaged with community, right? Like, and you can tell. And I think that's, and I think that's kind of FD's point about like you need to be a part of the community, right? Like whether that is attending a black church or black community events, like being a part of the community. Like, and that's what I will say about Abdul. When I met him, I could tell that's a brother who's been around the folks. You know, been to a couple, cookouts, been to a couple events. Like, you can tell that he's been engaged in black and brown circles for his entire life, right? And so, like, there's a genuineness that comes off that, like, someone like Stevens does not come off at all. Like, that. Listen, I don't know the last time she's seen a black person, but that's just me. I'm just assuming.
I mean, she got the endorsement, so.
She got the endorsement. Yeah. Oh wow. Oh.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
I mean, well, have you read the endorsement? Do you know what their reasons are?
We should read it. I'm sure.
Okay, let me pull it up. Let me put it up. See, because I am curious. CBC PAC endorses Haley Stevens. Okay. Here is Jim Clyburn.
Oh, Jim. Oh, Jimmy.
Haley has spent her career fighting for Black Michiganders, Chris Taylor, a spokesperson for the PAC, said in a statement issued Friday. From her time working on President Barack Obama's auto rescue, helping save 200,000 Michigan auto jobs, to standing up for Michigan's Black community in Congress, to now running to deliver on her Michigan Hope agenda, she's an effective fighter who will deliver for Michigan in the Senate. Clyburn said, "I've been proud to have Haley by my side through some of the toughest fights against Donald Trump and fighting to lower costs for working families. From taking on Big Pharma, while she takes money from United Healthcare to cap the cost of prescription drugs, to bringing back good-paying union manufacturing jobs to Michigan, to her work as chief of staff on President Barack Obama's auto rescue, helping save 200,000 Michigan auto jobs. Haley is a fighter for Michigan, and she delivers for Michigan. I'm honored to endorse her campaign for U.S. Senate." What are your thoughts?
I think that we have to require more. That's just broadly, right? Like, we have to require more. Like, nothing that, let me just kind of gather my thoughts. I think Black people, largely.
And I want to be clear, like, you are not the spokesman of Black people, so
no,
this is just a reflection of you.
I am the king of the Blacks, actually.
Okay. I take that back.
That's FD's joke on most of his things. He goes, as the you guys have prescribed me the king of the Blacks. No, but like, in my experience, Americans in general get next to nothing from their political establishment, their representation, for sure, right? But so whatever amount you feel like Americans get in it, how small it is, you can just shrink that down to next to nothing for Black Americans, right? And so I think there's a extreme pragmatism that the Black electorate has when it comes to these things, right? Like, I think it's because, like, so much of, like, Black existence in America is, like, from a survival technique. Like, we don't have the luxury of these pie in the sky ideas, right? Like, because when Trump does evil shit and Republicans do evil shit and some Democrats do evil shit, it directly affects us, right? So, like, we don't have the luxury of being like, oh, well, hopefully maybe we'll if we pie in the sky, we'll get this thing, right? So I think that, like, when a prominent Black leader like Clyburn comes out and he, mentions, the work that she's done that has actually fundamentally helped Black people in Michigan, I do think that probably rings true. I think the help on the Obama thing, although I don't think it's as powerful as it once was, I do think it does ring in some people's ears for sure. And also, like, I think there is a and I think this is something that anyone is going to have to come up against, right? Like, there is a fear that I think some Black people have when it comes down to trusting POCs that are not Black, because there's that saying that not all skin folk is kinfolk, right? And I think there's a long history of, like, other marginalized group, other minority groups, like happily throwing black people down the river to obtain some semblance of whiteness, right? Like, so from that standpoint, I think there's always some reservation. And of course, right, like you can also go like, well, but white people are the ones doing the thing. But like when they are endorsed by someone that like black people trust and has delivered on things that have actually made black people's lives better in a real fundamental way, like I understand why this is important. I think the problem is we have to want more. We have to demand more, right? And I think there is a cynicism that all Americans have, but I think especially Black Americans, that like this is the best that we can do. And like I fundamentally reject that. I absolutely reject that. We need more. We demand more. I'm gonna be honest with you. As fundamentally good these things that Clyburn is saying that, you know, Stevens did, in as much as it probably did help those black communities, it's fucking piss in the bucket. It is piss in the bucket for what black people and every American deserves. You know what I mean? And I could see, even if, you know, there are black people who are like, this is not that important, or this was a long time ago. Like I could see them being like, yeah, but like, is Abdul going to be able to get those big ideas done? I don't know. And it's going to be a hard fight. And so if I were to give him any advice, I think most leftists need to have the big plan, but also like what are the small things that we can do, that are achievable. That's what I thought was like really impressive about Kat's campaign, who, you know, I you know, Kat's one of my best friends. I worked on her campaign with her, and that
Kat Abadizaleh, for those who
Kat
don't know, who
Abadizaleh,
ran in Illinois District 9. Very big deal. That also had APAC all up in her grill up against her. So you have seen the front of the fight. And there was for a while people saying black people don't, you know, the black community doesn't know who Kat is, or all of the things that they would say.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, exactly. And it is difficult, I think, for to break into those communities, especially in a small way. And that's where like the institutional politicians have like a leg up, right? Like they have had years, like someone like the person that won, Daniel Best, has had years to be in those political circles and work with those black community leaders. So like people kind of know him, right? So like but I guess I say that like what was really great about Kat's campaign was the fact that she did focus on that mutual aid hub, which was like a actual physical fundamental thing that could touch. Like this is a thing that was done, right? So like even if you can't get me Medicare for all, I know that you have the ability to get these things that are going to make my life easier right now in the moment. And so I do think this is probably a useful tactic. Am I pissed off about it? Yeah, I am. But I think more than anything, like, I mean, that's not to say like Jim Clyburn is a very impressive and powerful political mover and shaker, but like, and this is kind of like my issue, and I know this is kind of what we are talking about when we talk about like the issues with leftists speaking, white leftists in black people's business, is that it's not someone is giving Jim Clyburn the boss call that like this is the white centrist that we are backing, right? Like that's happening. There are white power structures in the Democratic Party that is sitting down with Clyburn and going like, all right, who's going to push our agenda? So like, as powerful as Jim Clyburn is, if the white power structures in the Democratic Party wanted Americans to have health care and to have housing and to get money out of politics, the call would be made for Jim Clyburn to be endorsing Abdul, but it's not. So like, as much as white leftists want to talk about like, oh, you know, the Black Caucus should know better, they should know that this is what's better for them. It's not the black power structures in Congress that are making these decisions. It is the aggressively white power structures that control the Democratic Party that is making the decision that you deserve less. So before you come into my house and tell me and the black political structures what we should be doing, how about you get the white power structures in the Democratic Party to get off our fucking ass and to stop pushing us that way? You know what I mean? I think about the Black Lives Matter movement, and I think about it wasn't Barack Obama who made the call to Keith, I think it was Keith Ellis to the Attorney General to get charges against Chauvin. It was fucking Jay-Z. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't it was Jay-Z. It was someone fully outside of the political structure, right? So like that's kind of where my frustration comes in, right? Like if the white power structures wanted us to have more, we would have more, right? There would be no conversation about Jim Clyburn, not supporting the candidate that would actually do good for Black people. That's I think my overall thesis on this.
And I think also, I don't know if we have time to finish the video. I see that Andrew is backstage, but he did bring up that Clyburn did endorse Mamdani. So, I mean, I think it's like if you're gonna take the risk of going against the establishment, you better fucking make it worth it.
Yep.
And I'm not saying Abdul hasn't. We love Abdul here. Everyone's pro Abdul, but like sometimes people have to pick which battles they're willing to fight.
Absolutely, 100%. And the thing about and I know we got to bring on the next person, but I will say, like I imagine that endorsement, and this is just my speculation, came from the fact that like Mamdani has been deeply rooted in the Black community of New York City and in the political structures, and on top of that, Mamdani had to show that he was undeniable. It would be embarrassing. And exactly. It would be embarrassing to not support him.
Right. So, I mean, as you said, we have to demand more.
Yep.
And if not, like some people have to save their asses to keep whatever power they can to demand more when they have a chance to. Which is why I will again reiterate to the white left, shut your fucking mouths and don't commentate on threads about this endorsement and make it fucking worse for all of us.
Yeah, the Black people's business, y'all. We got this. Me and FD, we got it.
Well, thank you for being the spokesman of Black people.
The mayor of the Blacks. That's what they say. The mayor. I'm the mayor.
Thank you for coming by. I appreciate you. You can stay on if you want to for a bit. I also know you probably have to work. I'm going to bring Andrew on stage. Capitalism. Uh-oh, I don't want just me. There we go. Hi, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. This is Blue. Andrew. Blue is just here to talk about, because the Congressional Black Caucus PAC endorsed Haley Stevens today. And you know how the white left reacts to things like that. That just makes everything so much worse for everyone, because then all of the discourse is on how fucking insane we all are and racist, and we can't just shut up. So Blue is here to kind of explain to people how to come correct a little bit. Yeah. Do you want to stay on, Blue?
Yeah, I can stay on for a bit, and I'll I'll let you know when I pop off.
Hey, we've got 4 people here. Hi, Leo. Okay,
Hello,
do you guys want to introduce yourselves? Leo, do you want to introduce yourself? Andrew, introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. My name is Leo. I am a lifelong Pilsen resident, community organizer, and current chair of the 12th Police District Council.
Dope.
Cool. Yeah, and I'm Andrew Herrera, president of Herrera Strategy, and also a longtime resident, although not lifelong resident of Pilsen down here in Chicago Southwest Side. And yeah, Megan and I have worked together on a couple campaigns, pro-Palestinian human rights and anti-Epstein kind of fun stuff. So excited to be here.
Awesome.
Yes.
Guys, I'm Blue. I'm the host of the Blue Broadcast, which is a stream on Twitch. I've been in Chicago for about 2 years now. I worked on Cat Gonzalez's campaign as the outreach coordinator, and I've been involved with politics since I was 12. So I've been doing this for a long time,
Okay, so now that everyone knows each other, and I'm Megan. Usually I have this show with Steve. Steve is out of office, so I'm trying to keep things going, and I honestly don't think I'm doing that bad. You're
doing great.
Oh, thanks. I was fishing for that, so thank you. Okay, let me pull up some notes. So first things first, this Tribune article, one thing that I've been kind of tracking are these op-eds that are coming out up against the left. Like the more we get into these primaries, and I thought the Tribune had some interesting things to say because Chicago politics are weird, and I don't know if that's going to change, but we're going to talk about that. Okay, sharing screen. How do I get rid of that? No, I don't want, go away. Okay. Oh my God, this is so annoying. You can't see it, but I have annoying things. Okay. So basically, this whole article talking about, you know, all of these terrible leftists who are winning, and blah, blah, blah. But then it gets to how this does not work in Chicago, and it uses, okay, I'll read this part over. So far, the Democratic Socialists of America's success has been confined in large part to deep blue city districts. Meanwhile, in suburban areas and in statewide contests, establishment Democrats generally are winning against progressive challengers. Chicago saw its own version of this dynamic in March in the hotly contested and crowded race to succeed retiring Rep. Jan Schakowsky in the 9th Congressional District. The bomb-throwing influencer, did she ever throw a bomb, Blue?
No, she did not, and she's Arab, so that feels racist. She's also
It does!
She's a journalist. You would think the journalists at the Tribune would know that because they're also journalists.
God. That does
but
feel
what can you do?
Jesus. Jesus.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
She won portions of that district in Chicago's North Side lakefront neighborhoods, but suburban vote gave savvy Evanston Mayor Daniel Biss the win.
Yeah, he won by 3.5% of the vote, and he didn't get almost a single vote in McHenry County. So, you know, it's so funny because if this was the other way around, it'd be like, you know, Daniel Biss really knew how to speak to rural voters, and like that's important as it's such fucking bullshit. And
also,
listen, guys,
he's not savvy. He had a lot of people doing dirty work for him in the background that if they did not have, if they were not doing that, he would not have won. So don't give it to him, please.
No, absolutely.
God, but
that's my best friend, so I'm a little sensitive. Now, so you know,
Daniel Biss, we're still friendly with you though. Don't worry.
2 years.
What is clear is that centrist Democrats he's your mayor, haven't mounted much of a fight. The DSA candidates, and they don't fight anyone though. That's the thing. Centrist Democrats don't fucking fight anybody.
No,
that's the point. The DSA candidates and those in their ideological camp have an identity and an energy none can mistake. Medicare for all, taxing the rich, ending aid to Israel, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so then it's like, you know, good luck with flyover states. I was reading this and it's like, you know, talking about how nobody in Idaho would want this. And then the next op-ed I found was an Idaho paper saying Jesus would not endorse the DSA. I'm like, well, clearly in Idaho, they're afraid of it too. So I don't know. And then, of course, it ends, take as just one example, liberal Jewish voters. How many of them will be willing to swallow sufficiently hard to vote for someone who was justifying the butchery of Hamas on October 8th, 2023? Not so many, we'd wager, rightly so. Okay. So thoughts on this piece that the Tribune thought would be so important to publish?
Well, just quickly, you know, and I'd love to hear what Leo thinks about this because Leo is kind of much closer to the left, I think, than to the streets than I am, and I think there's the Tribune is betting that there's going to be this kind of like reactionary backlash against Brandon Johnson that's going to lead to a wave of kind of conservative wins in Chicago. And I think one of the things that's interesting in Chicago is that because we have nonpartisan elections for the municipal spots, the Democrat-Republican thing and the kind of binary goes away. So everyone's kind of all over the map, and it's kind of, you get like a Susana Mendoza who was basically a Republican, right? But she's running as a Democrat, or she's running for mayor, and you know, it all gets kind of confusing. So in a way, though, it's nicer because we get to think about, well, we should at least be able to think about politics a little bit more holistically and thinking about what's actually going to happen. And I think that on a stylistic level, sure, the Trib may have a point. Like politics here is always going to read a little bit differently than it does in New York, than it does in the coasts and what have you. But ultimately, people are facing the same issues. And I think when centrists start talking about progressives or DSA or whatever, they're always talking about what we can't be. But at the end of the day, people still can't eat. People still can't afford their houses. We can't breathe outside right now. You know, we have all the same problems, and people want to vote for people who solve their problems. And ultimately, the left is the place that has answers, and the center is telling you all the reasons we can't solve your problems. So, I think that, much to the dismay of the Chicago Tribune editorial board, the left, however you want to define that, is going to continue to be a really powerful force, because we're the ones who are actually trying to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Leo, go ahead.
No, yeah, I mean, to that point, I think that, one, it's not surprising that the Trib editorial board would drop this. And I mean, traditional media is always going to defend money interests, right? And it doesn't make sense for them to take the side of, the people. And with that, we see these candidates that are coming out and really pushing people first agendas, and just, making sure that your neighbor is okay. And I think that's super important, because we have, these centrist folks who are telling us like everything is okay, and even when things are not, just vote a little bit harder. We have the right that is always telling us, everything's fine, but really it's the person that's starving next to you that is trying to steal the food off your plate. So people opening up their eyes and realizing that we're all in this struggle together is really pushing these types of candidates forward. So it's, but we're not going to get that. We're not going to get, traditional media to admit to that, not anytime soon. So I think that, non-traditional media, podcasts, Twitch, all these people are going to be super influential and crucial to us getting our messages out to just the regular people, because, these platforms are blowing up, sometimes not for the best reason. We have people like our Cicero friend over there, Nick Fuentes, but for the most part, we have some grounded folks that are doing some amazing work, and opening up platforms for people to come and speak and share their message, and then it really humanizes all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And Andrew, I think to your point, I just wanted to kind of add to that like unfortunately the left is not the only one with answers, right? Like we're the only ones with correct answers, but the right is also giving answers. The answers are that the blacks and the Hispanic individuals in this country are stealing all of your goods and resources, right? Like, and I think kind of to your point, the reason why a political mover like Trump and the far right are able to dominate so hard, because you're absolutely correct. If there is a fundamental problem that is happening in America that is choking Americans, and one side of the political aisle says there's nothing wrong, buddy, everything is great actually, and the other one is like, no, there is a problem, but the problem is something racist, right? Something misogynistic, something homophobic or transphobic. Well, there's only one person addressing the problem, and that's where the left, the progressive, the leftists have to really push hard to give an answer to that, right? Because otherwise we're going to keep getting far right actors winning in these spaces. And obviously none of us agree with that framing, but like you can empathize with a starving American choosing to go with someone that is at least giving some semblance of an answer to the problem, opposed to telling you your stomach's not grumbling. Actually, you're not losing your house. Actually, the economy is great. Actually, so that's, I think, my perspective on it.
Mm-hmm. So okay. So I want to get into the mayoral race. I'm curious. Brandon Johnson, only 14% of Chicagoans want him to seek re-election. He is a progressive mayor. So, we do have a progressive mayor. I am wondering if this is because he can't get things done because the establishment won't let him. I'm wondering if, he just isn't really good at what he's doing. Like, what is going on that he has such a low approval rating? And are they going to, and I'm sure they are, oh, Steve is calling me, and I'm sure they are going to use this as like, but look, you got a progressive and it didn't work, so here you go now. What are your thoughts on yeah, just how he's been doing, because he has had some really good wins, I think. I mean, he's not Mamdani, but he's had some good wins. What is going on with that?
I'll take that, Leo.
So I mean, I've been a critic of Johnson from very early on in his administration, and it began with the 60-day shelter stay for the new arrivals when they were getting bussed in from Texas and Florida, and they had to do this weird, leave the shelter, reapply, go to the landing zone, wait for them to call you, and maybe you'll get back to the shelter that you were at, where you're already building community for these 60 days. And I think we're all in the same mindset of, community does provide some sort of safety. So you get to know these people that you were bussed in with, you build a little community there, and now you potentially move. So we were pushing back against that. We tried to reach out to his office, to administration, after several failed attempts. We did a little sleepover at his house with a little invitation saying, Brandon, come sleep outside with us. And, pushing back on how can you propose a safety plan when you're evicting people. And so we were pushing back on that. But looking at the whole landscape right now, I do think that it's going to have to be another vote blue no matter who. In this case, vote progressive no matter who, because it is hard to swallow me voting for a Susana Mendoza, a George Cardenas, or any one of these other people that are coming out. What I think is impacting, I think it is a lot of uncertainty, right? He's a first-time mayor. He is a organizer / activist / teacher turned politician. And I think that not everyone has the tactfulness. I think it was Alder Taylor who said we weren't ready for the fifth floor. Also pretty early on in the Johnson administration. And I think there's some truth to that, right? We need people to be in these spaces that might have this organizing and activist background, but are ready to turn those into tangibles, policies, because then we have, aldermen who are just screaming and grandstanding versus creating actual material changes and changing these conditions that are on the ground, right? Or we have potholes because we're too busy thinking about other things that might score us some points. So ultimately, I do think that we need to really look at, as a movement of who we're propping for these positions and make sure that they are grounded and ready to turn from, movement leaders into movement supporters and backers. Because that is the only way that we're going to be able to change actual material conditions, because we could do mutual aid all we want, but if, the system is still collapsing upon us, we cannot really survive in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want to talk about should we talk about who else is running, or do you want to talk about the alderman races first, since you brought that up? Because one thing about John's, I don't know, and I only moved back to Chicago not even a year ago. So I'm like very new to the, what's going on here. And I live in the suburbs, so I have no idea. But I do also hear that the aldermen that are a lot of the reason that he isn't able to get things done. So comments on that and thoughts on like important races such as your own, what people should be looking for, and what are like Blue was just talking about, we expect too little from our politicians. We really need to raise our standards, and we need to give people are afraid of dreaming too big. We can say Medicare for all, but that seems so intangible. So what are the things that are actually tangible that we can promise people that they can expect and that they can hold people accountable to?
Yeah, I mean, I've often been told that I have like pie in the sky ideas, but I really think like basic material changes within your ward are so crucial and necessary, right? Public bathrooms, those could help so many people, but we refuse to fight for them because they might not be popular, because a neighbor might say, oh, well, someone that's unhoused is going to live in there, or someone's going to do drugs in there, and then we're going to lose X amount of votes. I don't think that is the case. I think we stand by our principles and our values. And I also think that as a movement, we cannot be scared to put demands on our allied politicians, right? We helped get you in office. So if you're not listening to the demands of the people, then we're going to help remove you from office and put someone else who will. And I think that everyone takes, left on left critique as something negative, but call-ins are always welcome. Call-ins should always be happening because that is the only way that we stay, true north and true to our values.
Yeah, I think that's right. And, politics is messy, and it should be something that we're all participating in. And if we're all participating in it, you better believe if somebody's unhappy, they're going to call it out, and like that should be something that's expected. and somehow we've kind of developed this kind of political culture where our elected leaders it's somehow permissible for them to just kind of be totally absent and like never hold a town hall, never be seen, and they show up, at super staged events during the cycle. And so I think that, yeah, that's just to say that this idea of like look at the Tea Party and the right wing takeover of the Republican Party. Those guys hate each other. There's so many camps there, they hate each other. But they still line up and they vote for the same candidates. They kind of understand they have like an overarching ideological project. And for us, I think like kind of the point that Leo's been driving at, and one of the areas where I think our politics really overlaps the most is this idea of like community at the center of everything. Like the question we should always be asking ourselves is, how are we strengthening community? And those little amenities, like my neighbors, the 2 doors down, they sold their house and they had this bench. They would always be hanging out there. They're always in the front on the sidewalk. They're just hanging out. And it was like it brought so much life to the block. You always knew they're going to be there. And it made me so sad when they moved because it's like an empty corner now. It's like a void on the block. And then I was talking to another neighbor, like, well, I want to put a bench out in front of mine. He's like, oh, you can't do that. The vagrants will sleep there. And I was like, first off, there was a bench for like 15 years next to my house and it was fine. And like, how is that the first
And
time?
Also, who cares?
Who cares? If I saw somebody sleeping out on the sidewalk,
Good.
It's not hurting. So, that whole thing. But it is about community. And just one more quick thing, just your question about Johnson. I think that part of the problem is he hasn't really been consistent. He's kind of pissed everybody off. And so like one of the first things he did is he gave the CPD, the police department, a record raise, which everyone was kind of confused by. And the cops still don't like him. Like they were always going to continue hating him. And so from a political perspective, that move didn't make any sense. Like just own it that the cops are not going to like you and deal with that relationship. Don't try to kind of sweeten it for them. And then at the same time, being mayor of Chicago sucks. Like it's very difficult to be the mayor of any big city, and especially one that has a debt crisis like we have. And so you're always going to be dealing with cuts. You're always going to be dealing with kinds of things that are going to piss everybody off, and it becomes a messaging exercise. And also keeping your base together and mobilized. But the problem is Johnson won in such a multi-way primary, and then he ran against Vallis, who's just like a cartoon book villain. So you don't even totally know where his base is, and it becomes very easy to start pissing a lot of different people off. And I feel like there are a lot of little pivots in there. And so like the 60-day thing with the refugees who are coming over here, that was unnecessary, and it didn't end up doing anything. But there was a lot of political pressure on it because so many people were mad. But it also wasn't the problem of our making. It was Texas and Florida just shipping people here in shipping containers and dropping off of them like suburban malls. Like it was disgusting. And that narrative got completely lost in Chicago. And then when he starts talking about that, it sounds like he's making excuses when he's actually explaining the situation, which is correct. That this is an intentional crisis trying to sink a progressive black mayor of a major city. Like it's no accident they chose Chicago, but still the way the crisis unrolled, like he should have just been like, hey, these are human beings on our streets. Are we going to let them freeze to death in the wintertime? Of course we're not. But he said we were going to, right, with the 60 days, even though he didn't actually let that happen because he has a soul. And so there's a lot of these things that just kind of created, everyone's been annoyed at some point in the past 4 years, and it's not a great place for an incumbent to be. But the last thing I'll say on this is that Marty Quinn, who is, one of the powerhouses in City Hall, one of the last kind of mentees of Mike Madigan, he just announced he's retiring recently. And in an interview, he said that Johnson absolutely has a shot, absolutely a path to victory. He says, don't snooze on CTA and don't snooze on the DSA. And, I think it's, particularly in such a crowded field, there's a clear path for the mayor to to get to the runoff. And once he's in the runoff, like Leo's saying, if it's Johnson against Susana Mendoza, there's not a question in the world. You know, if folks don't know Electric Susie, you know, look that up on YouTube, because it's shocking. And no person of conscience should ever vote for her.
Yeah,
I'm looking it up on YouTube right now, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I think similar to Megan, like I'm new to Chicago politics. You know, I don't even technically live in Chicago because Daniel Biss is my mayor. But what I think, you know, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but I guess what I will say is I think the fundamental difference with most progressives and someone like Imam Dani is his masterful use of communication, right? Like I don't want this to kind of sound simple, but like I think on the left, our major issues that we do not know how to utilize the bully pulpit. Like you when you're in these positions of power, you have the most powerful thing, which is the attention of the entire electorate, especially in position like a mayor of a major city. You know, if your caucus or constituents are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, are stopping the progression that you promised that people voted for you for, then it is time to use the bully pulpit to force them into submission, right? Like there is every single day I would be using my communication apparatus to put on blast what these politicians are doing to stop you from getting the thing that you need, right? And I think that's what Mamdani is really powerful at doing. I hate to say it, that's what Trump is really powerful at doing. Like these, and I think this. I was watching something, but someone was saying like the biggest thing that they learned. Oh, it was you, Megan. I was watching your stream yesterday, and your friend Brittany was like, the thing I learned about people on Capitol Hill is that they're cowards. That every last one of them are cowards, right? And they can be easily bullied and influenced. And I think that we need to, as progressives, if we're going to get our agenda done, we need to not be afraid to bully and call out and push our political quote unquote allies into doing what's good. And that is not to say to disparage them, but you are keeping our electorate hungry. This thing that people want, you are stopping that from happening. So I need you to come to the front of the congregation and explain to the millions of people that need this why you are keeping it from them.
And one thing to add there, and I'd be curious to hear from you, Leo, about this, is that, you know, you talk, I think, rightly about using the bully pulpit, Blue, but I think a big part of it, and I think both Trump and Mamdani's communication style, it's not, you know, people think, when they think good comms, they think Obama, right?
Yep.
And Obama was a master orator, and everyone, you see Pete Buttigieg trying to sound like him, and
oh my God, Josh Shapiro.
Yeah, crazy. And so you get that, but I think the real trick of it is you have to bring people in with it. And so it's both a communication, but communicating as an organizer. And Mamdani's genius is like the Easter egg hunt. Everyone before the Easter egg hunt is like, well, it's so cringe. And like, you know, you see if any of these centrists try to do an Easter egg hunt, it would be incredibly cringe. It'd be the worst thing you've ever seen. But Mamdani did it, and it was fun, and it was just like a community day, and it was great.
There's
and all of his rallies are like that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And we were talking about that earlier, that like, you know, when we were talking about like the issue with leftists having with connecting to, you know, the Black community is that like both the quote unquote far, the leftists and like the centrists, is that like you really need to have the authenticity, and that authenticity comes from being a part of community, right? Like you can always tell. And I think to your point, that's what Mamdani has in spades. Like you can tell he is around these people. You can tell he's been in that community for a long time. It all feels genuine. But I think you're right. I do think you have to bring people in. But like, and I think kind of to your point, like the most useful use of the bully pulpit is like, you are like, I'm not using it to actually bully you. I'm using it to hold you to account, right? Like, and I'm not holding you account because you're pissing me off. I am holding you account because it is my job to represent this constituency, and you are letting them down. So you need to be held to account to them, right? Like, and I think that is like the most optimal way to do it.
I think another thing that Brittany mentioned yesterday, because she, lobbies for Palestine in DC, and I was asking what it's been like to see it go from just like a couple members of Congress to breaking 103 members of Congress voting. And what she was saying is, yeah, they're all cowards, but they're also seeing how you react when somebody, takes the brave step. If they take the brave step and you're like, okay, cool, but purity politics, fuck you, they're gonna be like, it's not gonna be worth my while to like lose all of my relationships with my donors. You guys are gonna hate me anyway. So we also do have to reward good behavior from our politicians. And I think that's where the left also gets it wrong, is being like we do have, you don't have to love a politician to appreciate that they are doing what they're supposed to do, and they're not going to continue to do it and put their neck on the line if it's all for nothing. Yeah. So it's that people are just, I think the left lacks political savvy in that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, a piece of that as well, and it goes into the comms and what you were saying, Megan, is that we often like fall into these spaces where people want us to talk theory, right? And it's this complicated language, it's this educated language, it's an elitist language, really, if you get down to it, right? And we're not breaking it down in the simplest terms where everyday people could understand it. And the everyday person is not reading Karl Marx and all these, right? Like they're living their lives, they're working 2 jobs. And I think that, Mondani did a great job on it. I think Trump does a good job on it, right? On the opposite side. But really talking to people's needs and saying like, this is what's happening. And this is how we can solve it tomorrow, right? The shoveling program that New York did, right? There's an issue. Let me support people. We're going to pay regular people and we're going to solve this issue. That is such an easy fix. You save money in the city budget and you pay regular day New Yorkers to do something that is going to support their neighbors. So I think like that accessibility needs to be primed and pushed so hard by our movement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we have Electric Susie here. Let's check her out, and then we'll look at the contenders for this race. Okay, share. Are we ready for this? I don't know. Wait, let me. Is that better? Nope, that's not better. There we go. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, today marks the end of a long and difficult journey for me on the issue of the death penalty. Many of you may recall that I was one of the last members in this chamber to pass an expansion of the death penalty. In fact, there was no issue that I was more passionate about than that one issue. Throughout my entire life, I've been a staunch supporter of the death penalty and a firm believer in the justice it serves and the punishment it represents for the worst of the worst in our society. I still believe that to be true. I want to leave no doubt that I feel no compassion or see any value whatsoever in the lives of the truly guilty on death row. I could administer the death penalty myself to a cop killer or a serial murderer and sleep like a baby at night if I knew without a doubt of their guilt. As a matter of fact, I believe that our current manner of executing the guilty in Illinois is much too compassionate and shows respect for life where the killer had none. I believe that a sanitized death is too kind and that the guilty should die in a manner much harsher, truer to the crimes that they committed. I know that this may sound cruel to some of you, but it pales in comparison.
It may sound cruel. Are you fucking joking?
To the cruelty inflicted upon so many innocent victims by these murderous animals.
God.
This debate for me is no longer about whether or not guilty killers deserve to die for their crimes. They do deserve to die. They do.
What the fuck? Literally what the fuck? I have too much to say about that. I mean, I know this is just what is wrong. What the fuck is going on?
Wait, so you're not going to vote for her for mayor?
I might. I'm thinking about it, but I think we are so far. I know this was 7 years ago, but this is still the mentality. People have such a punitive mentality, and you cannot address harm with more harm. You cannot dehumanize any population with that is authoritarianism. That's the baseline of authoritarianism. So yeah, people are murderers and they're still humans, and dehumanizing any population is not going to make that go away. It's also, it is so crazy.
100%. 100%. And it's also always disproportionately black and brown people.
100%. Like you had whatever his name, Sergeant or whatever, Burge, John Burge, and he tortured confessions out of 300 people. Come on.
No, she's running. Is she okay? So she's running. She's the comptroller.
Yeah.
How did she get that? What is happening? This place is crazy. Illinois is crazy.
She's like an old Madigan person. She was a Burke person, actually, an Ed Burke person. But she was in that old machine. And Burke was one who supported her run for state rep.
Okay, cool. Now we have Quigley. Tell us about Quigley. I should know more about him, but I don't.
Hey, Quigley's whole thing is, he's congressman of the 5th Congressional District, covers most of the Northwest side, way out into the suburbs. He in Congress has been a foreign affairs specialist, particularly. He's a veteran of one of the branches. I don't remember which one. But he's a big military defense guy, all that kind of stuff. He's been an okay congressman, honestly. He's okay on most issues. Kind of a very awkward guy. It just feels like I think certain politicians run for office as a way of gracefully bowing out. They can't tell themselves they're going to quit for some reason. I don't think this man has any shot at becoming mayor. He flirted with last time. He'll have money, he'll have some support, but I don't see him making that.
Okay. All right, but his logo is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
It's like a hockey stick.
Oh, hey, that is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's pretty kind of fun.
Okay, we can give him that at least. Okay, who else we got? We've got George Cardenas.
Dude, George is the worst.
Okay.
What is the slightest to love? Crooked guy.
Yeah, there was some social media pages years ago that would follow him around, just because he was just so bad.
So his claim to fame. So he was the alderman of 12th Ward, right now.
Yeah.
12th Ward is McKinley Park, Brighton Park, just south of us here in Pilsen, and he basically built a giant asphalt plant in his own backyard and then moved.
That's not funny. That's not funny.
What?
Yeah, so if you run a McKinley Park, which is one of the prettiest parks on the south side, if you run there in the morning 5 a.m., you can't breathe because they're mixing the asphalt. And in his own block, he basically he's blocks away from that. And anyway, that dude he's got to be one of the most personally disliked people in City Hall, I think. And then he had taken a ton of money from the family that owns Matt Asphalt, a bunch of them. So he got paid off basically. He's also he pays $2,000 a month to lease his car for the past 20 years, and he charges it all to the political account. He's given his brother a bunch of money from his political fund, I'm pretty sure. A lot of shady stuff with how he moves political money. He's one of the old HDO guys, the Hispanic Democratic Organization, which is the old Daily machine. Basically, he was a terrible alderman. His ward hated him, and so of course he failed upwards and became a board of review member, which is
how do we let people fail upwards?
Nobody knows what the board of review is. So if you got enough money and you get your name out there, boom. And at the board of review, you get 40 people that work for you. It's one of the last true patronage jobs or positions left in the state. And so he ran one of his employees against Leader Ma, and ran another one against Julia Ramirez, who's now the alderwoman in the 12th Ward. And so, yeah, he's basically somebody who's always abused power. He's somebody who is corrupt, poisoned his own community, and now wants to run for mayor of Chicago to further enrich himself and poison us all.
It's so insulting. It's so insulting that that is the way the system is set up, so people like that actually can throw their hat in. It's just it's so disgusting. Okay, this is fun. Okay, tell us about Matthew Brewer.
You know anything about him, Leo? He's just a rich business person, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much as I've looked up on him.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Not worth it. All right. This guy may run, is what people are saying, right? What's his deal?
Who?
Oh, isn't that the Secretary
Alexi
of State?
Giulianis.
Alexi Giulianis.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. Well, Alexi's in it, man. There ain't no maybe.
I was gonna say.
He's running ads for Secretary of State, but they're only hitting Chicago. It's like crazy.
Okay.
So he's got like $25 million in the bank. Look, I like Alexi. Like on a personal level, I think he's a nice guy. I think his whole thing is okay, this is my attempt at a 60-second. Hold me to it. 60-second background on Alexi. Okay. Alexi is the son of wealthy Greek bankers, who had, I think it was called Bridgeport Bank or Bridge. I think it was Bridgeport Bank. But they had a bank. It failed during the financial crisis. As it failed, it had given a bunch of really bad loans out, and so there's a bit of a scandal around it. They were very politically connected. And in that moment, Alexi had he had like half a foot out the door of the bank because it's a family bank, but he had become what was he? He was the treasurer, right? Leo, you remember?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So I think he was the state treasurer, and he was really close with Obama. And so when Obama was running for state senate, he got the Greek business community to donate really hard, really heavy behind Obama. They'd never really been engaged before, so he raised a lot of money for Obama. Obama goes to the U.S. Senate, same backing. Alexi ends up kind of riding his coattails to treasurer, becomes like the youngest ever. But then this whole bank scandal blows up in his face, and he steps out of public life for like 10 years, until he runs for Secretary of State. He wins that. He gets Chewy's and he gets a bunch of progressives. And he's been decent. He's done some nice things. I think he did PADLs before him. He's done some like he's more accessible. But what gives me pause, and he also hired a lot of Latinos, which is something that rarely happens in state government. So a lot of people look favorably on that. What's a little kind of uncomfortable is the donations that he's getting, and he's getting it from like all of the billionaires. I mean, he's getting everything. So he's got a lot of trade unions locked up. So like operating engineers are getting him millions of dollars. He's getting really significant money from a lot of different trade unions. So their support is clear on this. And then he's also getting a lot of support from like basically all of the local billionaire families, or billionaire families who have heavy interests in Chicago. And it's it's just hard to get excited about the guy who's taking all of the money from all of the billionaires. So yeah, that probably was like 100.
Good job. It's all right. Well, that's the thing with Chicago. I feel like it is just so. I mean, you could say the same thing about New York, I guess. And New York got Mamdani and had a lot of wins, but Chicago, to me, I always say Chicago Democrats, Illinois Democrats are still more conservative than Texas Democrats. If you saw the list of Texas Democrats who voted to end aid to Israel, it was like basically all of them, minus like 3 or 4.
Yeah, we only have one real party in the state, and so it has all of it.
Yeah.
Wait, look up on Google Images, Alexi Giannoulias tummy time.
Oh God. Okay.
Hold on. Maybe let me look it up first to make sure it's not lying.
Okay. Yeah. Look it up and send me the link. Oh wait, I see it. Hold on.
This man is he's a thirst trap, and he loves being a thirst trap.
Oh no, it's not this.
Yeah. And then
that's so why.
He's so silly with that. Okay, no, look up Alexi Giannoulias thirst trap. It's better.
Oh God. Okay, fine. The thing is, like, people like him with that much backing in a place like this win, and that's what's like. Do you think he would win? Like, do you think he could win?
I think he's the favorite. I think everyone thinks he's the favorite because the thing is that like nobody hates Alexi.
Yeah.
Like some people really like Alexi, and maybe just for aesthetic reasons or whatever. And nobody hates him, and he has $25 million. And so that to me like really sets him apart there.
This is so cringe. What the fuck are you doing, guy?
Oh my god.
There's the one that just came out recently of him like doing a backflip into the lake. He's looking swole as hell, man. Like he whatever the bodybuilders do, like they're cutting the weight down or whatever to get all trim. Like he's cutting right now.
He's got too much time and money on his hands, it sounds like. Oh God. Okay. So what should people be looking out for? Like what do you want people to know most importantly about the mayor race, and then we can talk about the alderman races.
What do people got to know, Leo?
I think it's always vote your values, right? That sounds pretty easy and pretty corny, but I do think that you don't succumb to pressures of your allies and all that. Like Andrew said, I think Alexi is a clear front runner in a lot of spaces. However, I find it a little hard to trust millionaires and multimillionaires and people who don't really grow up in similar struggles and understand, what it is to have to fight for dignity from government and from the people that are supposed to be representative of you. So there is this level of mistrust there. Like I said, just with the current.
I'm just gonna say fuck that guy, but
and possible candidates, I do think that at this point, I'm leaning again to Brandon, even though we have some stuff to talk about. But I do think that encouraging progressive voices and leftist voices to have those call-in moments with Brandon before we get to this election time is going to be key, or else we're just really running the establishment Dem playbook again.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead. Sorry.
I would just say quickly, in terms of what people can do right now, the early campaign time, before people have really staked out a position on anything, is the moment. Like if you're an activist, if you're part of some kind of collective or group or whatever, like now is the time really to be making noise around the issues that you care about, because the platforms haven't really been defined yet. And if you can get meaningful support around your core issues, you can help shape people's platforms. So it's never too early to start pushing people on specific platform priorities.
Yeah, I mean, the thought of having like another rich person, we already have Pritzker, and he'll probably run for president or whatever. But even thinking about the quantum data center, how much that South Shore is trying to fight the quantum data center, and they say like Brandon Johnson has tried, but he just does not have the political capital to do anything about it. We get another billionaire, millionaire, whatever, and there's no chance of fighting things like data centers, like things that really hurt our communities and benefit corporations, in my opinion. So like, people stay away from this guy, please. Don't buy his bullshit and his disgusting thirst traps. Okay, now
not you hating on the baddie being the baddie. That's crazy.
Yeah, damn.
It's baddie on baddie.
All right. Sorry,
Alexi.
Alexi. Change my mind.
Sorry,
my mind,
he's
babe.
got a 10
Okay.
pack. That changed my mind.
I don't know. He can change my mind. Go for it. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
I mean,
okay.
Not to get into too much politics. He does have some nice calves, and he wears shorts a lot.
He does wear shorts.
He got the hoochie daddies on.
So, but I do have to jump off before I head out. If people want to follow me at Leo for Community on Instagram, and we're going to be launching a very amazing campaign that will set up this next conversation. So thank you all for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming by. We'll have you on soon when Steve is back.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, where are you guys at? Do you want to keep going? Are you wanting to wrap it up?
We can talk about some of the Aldermanic races.
Okay, tell us where to start, because this is where I have absolutely no idea.
So I think.
Well, actually, sorry, I do want to bring up that the DSA is trying to recruit for 5 Aldermanic races, and I do not know how I feel about Chicago's DSA. But what do you think that is even like a strategy worth keeping an eye on, or what do you think it is really going to take to build left progressive power in Aldermanic races, and then whatever other thoughts you have?
Andrew, before you jump onto this, Megan, I do have to jump. It was
Okay,
great being
Blue.
on stream with you.
Always great to see you.
Andrew, it was great being on stream with you. Hey guys, follow me. I'm on Instagram at the infamous Scott Blue, and then X and Blue Sky at President Blue. I'll be streaming later tonight on Twitch, the Blue Broadcast, and then my YouTube, the Blue Broadcast channel, aka the BBC. I'll see you possums later, and have a good rest of your stream.
All right, bye, Blue. Thank you. Oh no, there you are. Okay. Okay. So the alderman races. Let's
Yeah.
go on this.
In terms of DSA, like, I mean, I don't know. I haven't really organized with DSA or in proximity to them in a long time. I mean, full disclosure, like I was really involved in municipal politics up until about like 2019. We lost a kind of tough race here in 25th Ward, and so since then I've been more focused at the state level, the county level, and I think DSA is mostly focused really on city politics. And so we just haven't overlapped that much. What I will say though is that I don't know about this strategy of just like interviewing folks to run, like recruiting. I think candidate recruitment is always a part of politics and always part of party politics. Petitions go out in like 2 weeks. So it's a bit late to be interviewing people because my sense is if you're still kind of putting a public call out for for candidate recruitment at this point, you haven't started the process, or you're at a point in the process that you don't think that you have any viable candidates.
Yeah.
And so you're just kind of running somebody at that point on like vibes.
And how are you going to properly vet people too? Like,
right.
Yeah.
And that's the problem you run into. And particularly in this moment with like Platner and all that, and like wherever people are on Platner, I know where you're at. Like the thing is, there is a vetting problem there. Or there's like this dude was like a raging alcoholic for like 10 years before he like in the recent past. And so you're gonna walk into a bunch of liabilities there. And even if you're a Platner stan, at the end of the day, you got to say the message is the important thing. Like, we're lifting up our movement, and that is not your most fail-safe messenger, right? You got to have somebody who's not been spending a decade blacking out with PTSD and all these other things that are going to create the possibility for what happened to happen. And honestly, like, they got lucky in New York. Like, Mamdani is like, it's like if you grew a fucking movement candidate in the lab, that's what you get. And so, but those people take cultivation. Like, Mamdani didn't just happen. Like, he's been in politics for like 6 years. I mean, technically, he's been in politics like his whole life, if you think about it. But like, he's been in electoral politics for at least 6 years, running campaigns, being a state assembly member, like a state rep, doing all the things. And so, like, if DSA is serious about that, then they need to be taking a step back and saying, like, how are we,
cultivating candidates? Yeah.
Now, that said, I've run organizations, and like, you get into this kind of panic moment where like, I have a terrible incumbent and I have a base in this ward. We can't not run somebody. But the problem that you run into there is that, like, okay, then you're attached to a bad person potentially, and not a bad person, like, but a bad candidate. And most organizations will just eat that. They'll just be like, well, I guess we got to stick with them. It's too damaging to change course. But really what's damaging long term is sticking with a bad candidate. It's better to ditch a candidate. And so, because you lose credibility and all those kinds of things. So I just reacting to that, I think it's an incredibly risky thing to be recruiting a candidate days out from the petitions launching.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, we saw with Graham Platner, now they're trying to attach Abdul Sayed to Graham Plattner and say, you know, you didn't listen to us about Graham Plattner, now you need to listen to us about Abdul. Like, really, it was not the hill worth dying on with Graham Plattner, a non-vetted person, because I would say that the two of them are night and day in many ways, other than their platform. So they're always going to try to fight the platform. Don't give them easy ways to weaken the overall movement, which I worry that is what could easily happen. What alderman races should people be paying attention to?
You know, I don't have like a list off the top of my head, but 25 is going to be a battleground. I think our boy Leo here is going to have, you know, something to say about that in future visits. But 12th Ward is really interesting. Julia Ramirez, I think, is a great person. I think she's had a good first term. She is, now going completely against what I just said, she is somebody who just basically picked up the mic and was just like, okay, somebody's got to do it, I'll do it. Sometimes you get lucky, right? And so she beat George Gardena's pick to succeed him. And then, and since then, she's, you know, I think she's been very responsive to the community. She's gone out, she's met with people. She takes her job very seriously of representing her neighbors. And interestingly, recently, I think it was CDOT, the Chicago Department of Transportation, they decided to, or CMAP, one of the C's, they put bike lanes in on Archer Avenue. And Archer Avenue is one of the most dangerous streets in Chicago, some of the highest pedestrian deaths, cyclist deaths, like all kinds of, it's just like heavy truck traffic in residential neighborhoods on a thoroughfare that's it's 4 lanes, 2 on each side, but it's too narrow for that. So there's a bunch of side swipes that are happening to the cars all up and down. Terrible stretch of road. So they built these protected bike lanes, and they cut Archer down to 1 lane in those areas to calm traffic, because people were also flying there. Like semis are doing like 45, 50 miles an hour on, you know, residential streets. And since then, she's been getting attacked by people being like, "You took our parking spots," which is, you know, very frustrating. From like, I mean, I'm a cyclist.
Yeah.
You know, I bike down that stretch of Archer all the time to the office. You know, but at the same time, the bike grid now folks in Chicago are very organized. So they've been counter protesting, but it's been this kind of this thing that popped off, and I think is going to be one of the major issues of the campaign, which is kind of a silly. It's just like, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. Central issue in a campaign in this day and age, or whatever, this moment in time. But that's, I think, what makes it particularly important, because if anybody anywhere in the city wants a bike lane ever again, Julia Ramirez has to win. So that's a really important one. I don't know what's happening in like 22 or 12 or any of those. I expect the North Side wards are going to be a mess. So like so basically the Brandon thing, everyone's going to be reading the polls, and they're going to say there's a backlash against Brandon, and so now is the moment to run against any progressive. It's not a change cycle, it's like a change era. So like there's just a lot of people who are running against everybody right now. And so I think you're going to see, certainly every socialist is going to get a challenge. I think it's going to be interesting, like in 25, like if Byron runs, which people expect him to, he'll probably get challenges across the board, like from the left to the right, which is unusual. I think most of the socialist aldermen, like Anthony Casada, people like that, they're going to get challenges that are pretty much exclusively coming from the right. And then La Spada up in the first ward is going to have a pretty serious challenge. I like him. He's another big bike advocate. So hopefully he stays.
So that's your number one issue, is the bikes.
Yeah, it's not my number one issue, but it is one of those things where it's like Leo was talking about, like public bathrooms. The thing is that if you actually had a bike grid in Chicago and you could do point-to-point biking in protected bike lanes all across the city, it would change the city completely. It would change how it feels. It would make it a more pedestrian city. It would encourage more businesses to pop up. It would encourage the city to bring back corner stores, which have been basically zoned out of existence. It would, like, all kinds of things would become possible because you'd slow down the rate of moving through spaces in the city. And the thing is, the way Chicago works is Chicago is a city of neighborhoods. And so it's really unnatural for like the fabric of our communities to have to like be constantly driving quickly through places. Right. And it makes much more sense to kind of be able to be in places a little bit more intentionally and slower. And to do that, look, the radical thing that I believe is you should get rid of Lakeshore Drive. It's the worst thing that ever happened to Chicago. I grew up thinking Lakeshore Drive was like the most beautiful highway in the world, which it's probably not true too, but I'm from Chicago, so I believe that. And but now I'm just like, what an unmitigated disaster. We put an 8-lane highway on our beaches. Like, who fucking does that? That's crazy. We cut ourselves off from, we have a 40-mile lakefront in Chicago. And we cut ourselves off from it. It's ludicrous. So, if we could do that, just imagine what a city we could have. So it's not my number one issue, but it is an issue.
But it's a big, if you think climate right now, look at like everything that we're dealing with, we need to get people out of cars. We need people to be able to like move, place to place. Without, we need to be less car dependent in general for our own well-being, for community, for being able to get to people easier. Amsterdam is great. Amsterdam is very bike dependent. And it does make sense. It's a big issue
with bikes. Like Paris was never a bike friendly city. And now over the course of one mayoral administration, they did a bike grid now infrastructure program, and the city completely changed. And it's actually much more pedestrian friendly, and people are actually even more out in the public than they used to be. So, and I think the thing is, like, again, like if you're looking at politicians and you're trying to figure out, like, is this person somebody that I would want to support? The question you should be asking yourself really to understand that is like, do they support policies that are likely to make it easier for people to come together, right? That's what community, everyone's like, oh, I'm for community, but like, no, like who is making it easier for people to come together and just be together in leisure and just being able to exist with each other without consuming anything or buying anything or whatever. And if you're doing that, I think the odds are that you're probably supporting a lot of other good policies like universal health care, like, access to healthcare, access to legal aid, access to all these other things. Because we are at a moment in time where you're either like pro-human or you're pro-corporations.
Yeah. Even thinking one thing Mom Donnie announced last week was having parents' night out where there's free daycare all across the city so parents can get out. That is like what we fucking need. Like,
yes. And these
so
are the things
simple.
that are just like speaking to people, and like that can't be that impossible to figure out. It'd be very complicated, but like,
he's figuring it out though, and like that gives people a little extra money in their pockets because they have this like daycare job for that night, and parents can go out, and that's good for businesses who need parents without kids screaming and parents who want to fight. Your kids, when you go, are you able to go out to eat with your kids? Because my kids are fucking insane when I try to go.
I can only eat out with them at like an outdoor restaurant.
Yeah.
Like
Mine are very crazy.
Then that's fine. But if I have to keep my children sitting in a chair for an hour, no.
Yeah, no. So this is what I miss about Texas. All of the like breweries, the beer gardens were for kids, and they would have like playgrounds in the beer gardens. Here they'd be like, why the fuck is a child at this brewery? Or but
people
things
give
like
you
that.
a hard time. Like if you have your kid, I'm like, shut up, dude. It's a fucking brewery. Like this should be a community space. Like people who like want community but don't want children in it, there's something wrong with them. Like that's
no, that children are the most vulnerable. Like you cannot claim to care about the most vulnerable if you don't care about children. You don't have to want to have them, but like you need to start to adjust your life to realize kids have to grow up to be adults. They need to learn how to exist in public spaces, and they're not going to do that hiding in their home or on a tablet, which I refuse to give my kids a tablet at a restaurant.
Right, and we also do it as a commitment because it is a lot easier to just give them a phone or a tablet. But the thing is, I think people need to really internalize that you're not actually in community if there are no kids around. Like kids almost define community. And so, and I think we've gotten to this place where like, we think of community, like our Twitter spaces and stuff like that. We're like self-selecting for like a really narrow band of people, but really community is intergenerational. And like, there should be people who are, there should be kids and there should be elders and there should be everyone in between. And and then everyone can really support each other because everyone's kind of there for a different thing. Like the abuelitos are there because they're just trying to hang out. They're not trying to fucking like do a thing. And like the teenagers are trying to play ball or something, you know. And like then there's like 5-year-olds, and the 5-year-olds and the abuelitos kind of match up because they're both like not doing that much, you know, and they can kind of look out for each other or whatever. The abuelitos can look out for the little kids, and the little kids can, you know, be joyful in their safe, confined space. So anyway, that's the kind of politics that, you know, it's kind of a cheat code. It's like, are you making it easier for people to just be? And if you're not, if you're giving us any reasons as to why it's impossible to do that, and I think the tough thing is a lot of the time you get two candidates who like everyone's just talking past each other, and they're like talking to their donors, because that's the thing is like, you want to run for alderman, you got to raise 100K, right, at least. And then most normal people have no fucking idea where they're going to get $100,000 from. And so the first and last thing they think about is, where the fuck am I getting my money? And so all they start thinking about is fundraising. And so because that's what they're thinking about, that's who they're talking to. And, you know, all respect to our friends and brothers and sisters in the trade unions and in any other union, but like unions are the places that fund working people's campaigns. And so, but union interests are not everyone's interests. You know, they want their contracts and they want their things that they naturally, that's what they're for. They're there to support their members. And so that has to be part of the conversation. But the threat is when and I'm saying I'm holding out unions as like the good funders, right? There's of course like dark money and corporations and whatever else. But even with the good funders, if that's all you're talking about, the conversation gets stilted. And then there's not really anybody who's offering the public anything they could really vote for that reflects their own individual set of interests.
What do you think, I guess it's going to be different neighborhood to neighborhood, but what do you think most people are concerned about with the upcoming, like what are their top issues in the upcoming elections?
You know, I was thinking about this because I was like, education, and I hate this like list. Like, I mean, everyone talks about it. What are the top 5 issues? Like education, safety, and I'm getting polled all the time now. Like, what do you give me like 12 options? What are the top 3?
And everyone's platform is going to look the same. Like they're going to say, you know, like
everyone's like, oh, I'm for like education and good jobs and safe streets. And fucking okay, whatever. I think really the thing is, people want a government that works for them, right? Like when you're talking about the government, it's not just like I want safe streets and I want my kid to go to school or whatever. They want the government to do what it says it's going to do. And I think, you know, Mamdani just rolled out that, I hate that I talk about him so much, but he's like my only fucking positive example. So
love him.
He's great. And so like he rolled out this new program of like, basically I think he made a play on Doge, right? And it actually wasn't that one. It was the next one that he rolled out was about basically making their services easier to use online. And like that is the kind of right way to be thinking about. And like what he did was the first thing, one of the first viral videos that he had in running for mayor was the halal carts, and not even halal, but, you know, all the food carts. And he was talking about how expensive it was to get those licenses, and the fact that it wasn't even the city getting the money; it was like middlemen who were holding on to the licenses that were jacked at the prices. And then, like, those are the things that it drives people insane. People hate that. And then he comes in the office and he does, you know, Leo mentioned the shovels. And like, people just want, like, if my street is flooding, I want to know somebody's going to do something about it. And even if that's doing something means calling me and asking me to get a bucket, I need somebody to coordinate what the fuck that response is. And like, that is what people want. And that's what people like in Illinois, in Chicago, it costs $36,000 to replace a lead service line, which is 6 times the national average. Jesus. And nobody in the water department can explain why or what the cost drivers even are. And the only thing they said was labor, because they love telling us that it's the unions. But our prevailing wage for a plumber is $95 an hour, which is actually lower than in Indiana, which is like $100 an hour. And their cost is like $8,000 and ours is $36,000. So, and the reporter kept asking questions and they just stopped responding. He was like, I don't know. And so like, that's the kind of shit that you're just like, oh, well, we have more lead service lines than any other city in the entire country. We have so many lead service lines that the federal government actually gave us a waiver. They're like, we're one of the only cities that doesn't actually have to get rid of all lead service lines by like 2030 or whatever it was, because we've got too fucking many. And despite that, the city's not doing anything about it. And like, I mean, with all respect and love to Mayor Johnson, we've got a guy out there who's talking about youth violence and like, it's all about environmental factors and all these kinds of things. True. But at the end of the day, lead poisoning leads to a marked increase in youth violence because it's a neurotoxin, right? And so you put it in little kids especially, and they get more violent, and because they're confused and they get frustrated and all these things. And so it's like, it actually is a social justice issue. It actually is a child issue. It actually is all these things. And despite that, successive administrations have done jack all to actually get rid of the lead pipes that are poisoning all of our city's children. And like, and that's just one issue.
Right.
And so you look at all of that, and like we're looking at like CPS is a $10 billion budget, and like they don't have enough money, and it's like, but where does the money go? Like, why does it all cost so much? And this isn't this administration, but when I was on a local school council back like 10 years ago, they didn't have paper or pencils in the rooms, right? They did not have enough money for papers or pencils, but every single classroom had a $5,000 smartboard. Like, it's an elementary school. Nobody needed the smartboard. And then,
we were fine back in the chalkboard days and in the whiteboard days. What the fuck are you talking about?
And they didn't train the teachers on how to use the smartboard, so nobody was using it. So everyone had a $5,000 smartboard that nobody was using, but nobody had paper or pencils for the elementary school kids. And so the teachers had to buy it out of their pockets. And like, that is not a city that works. And what people want is a city that works. So, I think really the platform is like, top issues, It's the things that kind of, but I think everyone misses what do they say? You miss the forest for the trees. Like they're looking at those trees, those planks.
It's like we don't have the luxury to not look at the granular level. Like the thing about Mamdani is you can tell he got to know the people of New York, so he knew what the issues were. And when people have these like broad platforms, it's like, do you actually know any? Like I cannot imagine Alexi here actually knowing what day-to-day people are fighting.
Probably not. And he's got a great political strategist that's worked for him for a while, and so I mean his messaging will probably be pretty good. But the thing is, and I got to go here in just a sec. But the thing is that I do think like it has to be the broad message is the top line. It's like it has to be like, I hear you, I see you, and I'm going to make the city work for you. And that's kind of what Mamdani always does, right? He's like talking about
everything comes back to New York. Whether they're asking him about Israel, he's like, "Why would I go to Israel? I'm focusing on New York City. I'm the New York City mayor." Like everything goes back to this is my job.
Of making life affordable in New York. That was like his central premise on everything. And then, but like you said, everything laddered up and down because then he could talk about any of the fucking things at that point. Like you can drill down per audience, but it all comes back to. You got to be able to afford to live. And that's the same shit here. And part of that, and he gets this, is that like, you shouldn't have to pay to go to the park. You should have a place where your kids can have fun with other kids in the wintertime without paying for it. Because you already fucking pay for it. We pay our fucking taxes.
Right.
And so there should be somewhere. Where do they go? Like these fucking teen takeovers and bullshit. I'm just like, man, what the fuck? Was nobody ever a teenager? Like,
right.
Shit? And I'm like, we fucking got rid of the neighborhood schools. So, like, all these kids, you gotta understand, in Chicago, if you go to a public school, especially any competitive public school, your friends in your class are from every corner of the city. So the only place you guys can actually meet up are these hubs. You're gonna go to Hyde Park. You're gonna go to Grant Park. You're gonna go to these different places. And you're like, why are they showing up Grant Park? Why can't they stay in their neighborhood? It's like, because you broke their fucking schools up. So their friends that they know live in Rogers Park, even if they live in Ashburn. And so
there's nothing for them to do. Like, what are they supposed to do?
Exactly. And so what you want them to do? Like, you want a 16-year-old holding their mommy's hand the whole time? Like, fuck you.
Right.
Like, was nobody a fucking kid? And so it's like, yeah, they break a car every once in a while. Like the shootings are a bad thing, and we gotta take care of that. But like That's also a thing that's just like
it's all wrapped into the same issue, which is
right.
these kids don't have shit to do. They
Right.
need, yeah.
And I think it's the greatest indictment of a society when we're afraid of our own children. And I think that's the biggest thing is like, this is where it gets racialized. And this is where it's like the classism and racism comes in, because they're just like, oh, they're not our children. But like, I grew up in the suburbs, bitch, they are your children. Like, your children are just as fucking messy and destructive as any of the fucking kids anywhere else.
Oh yeah, I was just at a 4th of July party. My aunt's house, like she has a lake house, very rich white community, and they were saying like one of the neighbors was like, a bunch of the teenagers stole our shit. They went through grandma's room, and I'm like, if they were Black children, this would be a much different conversation. People truly don't understand that teenagers are pieces of shit everywhere you go, and like the race fact, it's just like they're only worried because it's Black kids. Like it's
and that's the thing is like that is developmentally the age when you are setting your own boundaries as an adult, like, right? So you're always pushing the boundaries of other people, and you're pushing boundaries, so you're going to be transgressive at some point. You're going to go too far and somebody slaps you back, and that's okay, but like we make them out, and this is where the fucking Susana Mendoza stuff comes in. It's just like, you're going to take something and like, if you shoot the wrong person, if the wrong person shoots, I mean, it's just like the 1919 race riots. It's like, a Black kid supposedly does like anything. I mean, I think what happened there was like he literally walked over.
He was in Michigan, Lake Michigan. He like accidentally went over.
Yeah. So that's not even a good example because that's even more insane. But whatever. Like if you're a Black kid and you kill a Black kid, nobody gives a shit. But if you're a Black kid from the South Side and you kill a rich white person in the Loop, the whole city's gonna go on fucking lockdown. And the same goes for Latinos here in the Southwest Side, and it's an in-group out-group thing. And it just becomes a thing that like all kids are all our kids, and we all have to believe that and know that. And
it's all our problem. But that's where borders are like a successful political tool, because they let us think that there are separate issues for separate people and it's their issue and not ours, rather than realizing any inequity anywhere is going to come back to all of us.
Yeah. And it's like they've tried to make people invisible and they're upset that they're still there. And that's a thing where people got to see themselves in the mirror a little bit. But like, you bet you're doing that to you too. Like, we all got to be together in this, because these AI overlords are coming and they're going to try to squash us all.
I mean, they're here.
They're here and they're trying to squash us flat, and we got to stand together or we are all totally fucked.
Yes. Well, on that note, thanks for coming by the stream. Appreciate you.
It was fun.
Come back soon. I did not talk to the chat at all. I'm so sorry, chat. I was not very chatty with you today, but thank you for coming by. The ones who were nice, a lot of you were saying racist shit. I booted some of you, but Chicago Bish, I don't know if you're still in here. Always happy to see you. All right. Thank you. Good to see you. We will talk soon. Bye, y'all.
Bye.